Hi, it's Paula. This is the Common Book Show, and I'm here today with Richard and Nessa and James and my son Tom on drums. And the first thing I want to do is I want to read a section of The Wizard of Oz. I mentioned the last few weeks that because I'm reading such heavy histories, ancient source material histories, I have to break it up a little bit by listening to. I'm listening to children's books, basically, mostly because I never read these books because I didn't start reading like a serious reader until I was in my 20s. So I missed a lot of stuff. So now I'm listening to these things, and I listened to The Wizard of Oz, but I'm done with it. And there was something about this passage that reminded me of what's going on in our government now. And it just, it might not be a perfect analogy, but I wanted to read it because it struck me this way while I was listening to it. Okay, so this is right after the curtain fell, and they saw the wizard sitting there. It says, as it fell with a crash, they looked that way. The next moment, all of them were filled with wonder, for they saw, standing in just the spot the screen had hidden, a little old man with a bald head and a wrinkled face, who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. The Tin Woodman, raising his axe, rushed toward the little old man and cried out, "Who are you?" "I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the little man in a trembling voice. "But don't strike me, please don't, and I'll do anything you want me to." Our friends looked at him in surprise and dismay. "I thought Oz was a great head," said Dorothy. "And I thought Oz was a lovely lady," said the Scarecrow. "And I thought Oz was a terrible beast," said the Tin Woodman. "And I thought Oz was a ball of fire," exclaimed the Lion. "No, you are all wrong," said the little man meekly. "I have been making believe." "Making believe!" cried Dorothy. "Are you not a great wizard?" "Hush, my dear," he said. "Don't speak so loud, or you will be overheard, and I should be ruined. I'm supposed to be a great wizard." "And you aren't?" she asked. "Not a bit of it, my dear. I'm just a common man." "You're more than that," said the Scarecrow in a grieved tone. "You're a humbug." "Exactly so," declared the little man, rubbing his hands together as if it pleased him. "I am a humbug." "But this is terrible," said the Woodman. "How shall I ever get my heart, or my courage," said the Lion, "or my brains?" wailed the Scarecrow, wiping his tears from his eyes with his coat sleeve. "My dear friend," said Oz, "I pray you not to speak of these little things. Think of me and the terrible trouble I'm in at being found out." "Doesn't anyone else know you're a humbug?" said Dorothy. "No one knows it but you four and myself," replied Oz. "I have fooled everyone so long that I thought I should never be found out. It was a great mistake my ever letting you into the throne room. Usually I will not see my subjects, and so they believe I am something terrible." "But I don't understand," said Dorothy in bewilderment. "How was it that you appeared to me as a great head?" "Oh, that was a trick," answered Oz. "Step this way, please, and I will tell you all about it." He led the way into a small chamber in the rear of the throne room, and they followed him. He pointed to one corner in which lay a great head made out of many thicknesses of paper, with a carefully painted face. "This hung from the ceiling by a wire," said Oz. "I stood behind the screen and pulled a thread to make the eyes move and the mouth open." "But how about the voice?" she inquired. "Oh, I'm a ventriloquist," said the little man. "I can throw the sound of my voice wherever I wish, so that you thought it was coming out of the head. Here are other things I used to deceive you." He showed the Scarecrow the dress and the mask he had worn when he seemed to be a lovely lady, and the Tin Woodman saw the terrible beast was nothing but a lot of skins sewn together with slats to keep their sides out. As for the ball of fire, the false wizard had hung that also from the ceiling. It was really a ball of cotton. but when oil was poured upon it, the ball burned fiercely. "Really," said the Scarecrow, "you ought to be ashamed of yourself for being such a humbug." "I am. I certainly am," answered the little man sorrowfully. "But it was the only thing I could do. Please sit down there. There's a couple of chairs, and I'll tell you the whole story." So they sat down and listened while he told the following tale. "I was born in Omaha." "Why, that's not far from Kansas," cried Dorothy. "No, but it's farther from here," he said, shaking his head at her sadly. "When I grew up, I became a ventriloquist, and 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 at that I was very well trained by a great master. I can imitate any kind of bird or beast." Here he mewed like a kitten, so that Toto picked up his ears and looked everywhere to see where she was. "After a time," continued Oz, "I was tired of that, and I became a balloonist." "What is that?" asked Dorothy. "A man who goes up in a balloon on a circus day so as to draw a crowd of people together and get them to pay to see the circus," he explained. "Oh," she said, "I know. Well, one day I went up in the balloon, and the ropes got twisted so that I couldn't come down again. It went way up in the clouds, so far that a current of air struck it and carried it many, many miles away. For a day and a night I traveled through the air, and on the morning of the second day I awoke and found the balloon floating over a strange and beautiful country. It came down gradually, and I was not hurt a bit, but I found myself in the midst of a strange people who, seeing me come from the clouds, thought I was a great wizard." Or down a golden escalator. "Of course I let them think so, because they were afraid of me and promised to do anything I wished them to do. Just to amuse myself and keep the good people busy, I ordered them to build a city and my palace, and they did it all willingly and well. Then I thought, as the country was so green and beautiful, I would call it the Emerald City, and to make the name fit better, I put green spectacles on all the people so that everything they saw was green." "But isn't everything green here?" asked Dorothy. "No more than in any other city," replied Oz. "But when you wear green spectacles, why, of course, everything you see looks green to you. The Emerald City was built a great many years ago, for I was a young man when the balloon brought me here, and I am a very old man now. But the people have worn green glasses on their eyes so long that most of them think it's really the Emerald City. And certainly it is a beautiful place, abounding in jewels and precious metals and every good thing that's needed to make one happy. I have been good to the people, and they like me. But ever since this palace was built, I've shut myself up and would not let any of them see me. One of my greatest fears was the witches, for while I had no magical powers at all, I soon found out that the witches were really able to do wonderful things. There were four of them in this country, and they ruled the people who lived in the north and the south and the east and the west. Fortunately, the witches of the north and south were good, and I knew they would do me no harm, but the witches of the east and west were terribly wicked, and they had not thought through I was more powerful than they themselves. They would surely, and if they had thought I was more, I'm sorry, and had they not thought I was more powerful than they themselves, they would surely have destroyed me. As it was, I lived in deadly fear of them for many years. So you can imagine how pleased I was when I heard your house had fallen on the Wicked Witch of the East. When you came to me, I was willing to promise you anything if you would only do that or do away with the other witch. But now that you have melted her, I am ashamed to say that I cannot keep my promises." "I think you are a very bad man," said Dorothy. Okay. Do you see what?
I see the symbolism.
Yeah, I felt it. When I was listening to it, I said, I got to find this part of the book so I can read this, because it's wearing the glasses, not seeing things the way they actually are, him getting a kick out of making people believe in him.
Well, the people wanted someone to believe in him.
They wanted, right, they saw him come out of the sky and they just assumed that he was a wizard, right? I mean, and just like coming down the escalator, a very rich man, very rich and powerful man is going to lead us in the way that we should be going because he knows what he's doing. He's a businessman. So I felt an affinity for this as I listened to it. So it's amazing how much symbolism there are in these stories, and the kids are just listening to the surface level, but I'm glad I'm reading these. It's fun.
I have a theory. The more creativity in your life, the more you can see symbolism.
It's yeah, oh yeah, I think so too. I think that you have to have the certain kind of your mind has to be agile. Yeah, don't you think?
Uh, well, you say agile, I say creativity. I think we're on the
Yeah,
same path.
I think it's the same thing. Yeah.
What do you think, Vanessa? Do you think that the more creative you are, the more symbolism you can see?
I don't know how to take that.
Well, I mean, do you think that a person who was not a creative person would have gleaned the same political stuff out of the Wizard of Oz that a person with creativity could have seen?
Hmm.
You mean like a flat one-dimensional person who doesn't see nuance?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Oh, you call it nuance.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is a good way of putting it. I think, right, people that are not looking for any meaning.
Right.
I wasn't
They
looking.
just look at
Yeah.
the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for any meaning. It was just like I was floored by this when I started listening to it and thinking, sounds a lot like the political situation. What do you think, James?
I'm reminded of a thing a professor of mine said in college that powerful elites are most deathly afraid of someone coming out and saying, "This looks like this." And at the time, I thought, what's there to be afraid of with that? Lots of things will remind you of other things. But I came to realize that he was correct because the point is you can get people to see things that they wouldn't see otherwise by saying, well, compare this to this other thing, and do you see the connection? Like one of my favorite shows is Firefly,
Mm-hmm.
which has a long history because it was one of those things that Rupert Murdoch bought the show in order to make sure nobody else bought the show so that he could kill the show and make sure that nobody got to see it as best as he could do.
Why?
Because it does things to say this looks like this. Joss Whedon said everybody wants to do Star Trek, but in most people's version of Star Trek, all human problems have been taken care of, and we're all singing Kumbaya, and we don't need money, and everything is just working out fine. Exactly. He said, what makes you think that the future is going to be anything different from the past other than doing the same stuff with different technology? And so there are things in Firefly to point this out. And one of my favorite episodes for just this sort of thing, the characters are the two main characters were in the military in something that looks suspiciously like Vietnam, and so they want to avoid any contact with the government. To this point, they live on a spaceship that they try to keep moving all the time so they don't put down enough roots to deal with things like taxes
Oh.
and homeowners associations and so forth. And they get basically stopped by a government cruiser in this one show. And at the conclusion of the episode, they're basically given a ticket for not having an inspection sticker.
On their spacecraft?
Yes, because you haven't had your spacecraft inspected within the allotted designated time. And when you see this, you can't help but think how ridiculous that is. If I don't maintain my spaceship, I die. I don't need you to tell me to maintain my spaceship. And you're going to rob me of the money that I could use to maintain my spaceship
By
just to
paying a
say.
ticket.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, yes.
you're definitely what is that category of politics? It's not libertarian.
Libertarian.
You're definitely libertarian. I can see.
Me
Well,
too.
yeah, I can see the benefits of that, but it's gotten don't you think libertarianism has gotten a little right winged?
You have two versions. You have your left libertarian and your right libertarian. And libertarian is often so far left that it starts to become right, and so far right it becomes left because it's more of a circle. It's not a line, right and left. It's more of a circle, and where the left and right meet,
Wow.
they start to blend.
Yeah, that's complicated. So later on in the show, I want to show something that made me very happy. That was on Danny Neverth and Joey Reynolds did an interview, and they were talking about my mom. But I'm going to wait a while for that. I want to see what else Richard has on his list, because I know every week he's got a new and exciting list of things most of the time I don't even know about.
This is from today's New York Times.
Okay.
Tell me if you've noticed this,
Okay.
because you go to the movies.
Yes.
There's a laugh epidemic in movie theaters. People are laughing during violent, sexy, or scary scenes in movies. You can see it go through the crowd when Nicole Kidman lapped up milk from a saucer on her hands and knees. You can see it when
Wow.
Lily Rose Depp contorts herself inhumanely in Nosferatu, or when Mikey Madison is bound and gagged in the movie Anora, or when Donald Craig is shooting heroin in Queer. Movie theater managers are perplexed why this is happening and why now. You have any theories?
Well, the times that I've gone to the movies lately, there have been so few people in the theater that there's really you don't get that group response that you would normally get in the olden days when people used to go to the theater. I don't recall anybody laughing at that. I think it was shocking. That was shocking. Didn't you find that shocking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't noticed it, but you know what? This person's writing about what's happening in New York, and there's probably more people going to the theaters.
Yeah.
But I think there's that compulsion to laugh when you're uncomfortable. People will laugh when they're uncomfortable.
Well, why not in previous eras?
I don't know. I mean,
That makes me think
they
there's
cruel?
something unique to this historical period.
do you think it's
Yeah,
out
the
of-
world has
out
changed.
of
It's
cruelty?
since Trump.
Yeah.
Trump is a big catalyst for change.
Yeah.
Not good change, but
But do you think
it's a whole new world with all new rules.
But are they laughing out of cruelty? Is it like laughing at somebody who falls down?
Yes, it could be some components of that, but then again, it's a shift in perspective.
That's interesting.
James, do you have any hypothesis? Why now is this happening?
Well, for one thing, there's a lack of empathy. And for another,
Good point.
It's I'm sorry if I have to do this again, but from the world of pro wrestling, uh,
That's why we have you. You're our pro wrestler representative.
there was a conversation where an interviewer had managers Jim Cornette and Bobby Heenan having a discussion. And one of the subjects that they came up with was the old school wrestling managers had a job, which was they lived in the territory. And their job was to be the person that the fans hated so much that all you had to do is have somebody walk out with this guy. You don't know this guy from Adam, but if he's with that guy, he's no friend of mine and he's no good. And if you wanted to turn a babyface heel, all you had to do is have the babyface shake hands with Jim Cornette or Bobby Heenan, and everyone's like, I can't believe you turn your back on the goodness of the world, you dirty two-time and
So
whatever.
so there was a good and the evil, and they could not meet.
Yes, yes. So, Cornette and Heenan were the representatives of evil. Now, how they would get the fans to dislike them is by doing bad things. But the trick was the butterfly effect. Do the least amount of work to have the biggest impact. So, say the baby face has been working his way up the ladder of contention, and he's got this match tonight for the United States Heavyweight Championship. And he's done his thing, and the heel champion is lying in the middle of the ring, and he's going for the cover. And the heel manager would trip him with just one move of his hand. And that would be the thing that would cost him winning the United States Championship. Just one sweep of his hand. And the interviewer said, do you have any feelings about the fact that traditional managers don't exist in wrestling anymore? And they said, well, they're lazy these days. They just want to put a hot girl in a tight dress and have her walk down the aisle and get everybody to clap and woo and oogle the girl. But there's another thing that's happened. I don't know if we could do a traditional manager in this climate anymore, because the reason why the traditional manager worked is because you could get a reaction out of people. They all were saying, not on my watch. I'm not going to sit here and watch you cheat like that. We're going to do something about it.
Right.
From telling the referee to literally coming down the aisle and bopping you on the head. People don't do that anymore. And
Because they
this
don't
is the
feel for the person that's being injured. They're
right. And they're not willing to get involved. When something for real is happening in the world,
Yeah.
people take out their phones and record it. They don't
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. So, I think the lack of empathy point is really kind of why, people are laughing at inappropriate things during the movies, but I haven't witnessed it myself because, my experience has been there's so few people in the
If you're on
movies.
if you're on Facebook, that's all people do is laugh, react to inappropriate things nonstop.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. Even on the talk shows, especially Jimmy Fallon, they show a lot of clips of people falling and hurting themselves, and they think it's hilarious. And I don't find that funny. I don't think it's funny when somebody gets hurt, and I think that that's kind of out of fashion. Hey, Tom, do you know how long that clip is? Okay. All right. I'm gonna show this clip so we can get this out of the way, and then first of all, I'll give you a little build up. my mother was the Polish cleaning lady at Channel 7 for the studio and the radio, WKBW, and the studio, TV studio. And I wrote a book, and I called it Polish Cleaning Lady's Daughter. And the reason for that is because she was the Polish cleaning lady, and she used to talk on the radio with Joey Reynolds and Danny Nevereth. So this was a little thing that somebody sent me that of a recording that they made talking about my mom. So here we go.
I give you your moron.
It's all about me. That's right. As long as we remember that. A lot of things happened at WKBW Radio. And one of the things was kind of embarrassing personally to me because, I'll explain what happened. There was a woman who would come into the radio station at night and clean. She was the cleaning woman. And she had a long Polish name, which we didn't know how to pronounce. So Joey Reynolds and myself referred to her as the Polish cleaning lady.
There was always something, and we refer to everything around us. That's what Danny came up with. Whatever was going on was going to be on the air. You know, I mean, you didn't dare do anything that was sacred.
Now, she had absolutely no idea what we were doing on the radio. As a matter of fact, there was one time when she went into the studio where the engineer was working and a record was playing, and she picked up the arm of the record and started dusting around. She had no concept of what we were doing. She was just a wonderful person, friendly, smiling all the time. So we called her the Polish cleaning lady, and she became almost like a character on the show.
The Polish cleaning lady was a character. You know, we had people around us, to be honest about it, and I am. Andy Bova across the street who owned the gas station, he was a character and a half. He didn't know it. He was like Jonathan Winters. You know, he came across the street with a monkey wrench. He walked in the middle of shows. He didn't care whether we were on the air or not. We had a lot of characters around us all the time.
She really had no concept of what we were doing. She just thought we were two goofy guys, and she played along with it. Well, she turned up missing for a couple of weeks. Somebody else came in and was doing the cleaning. And when she finally came back, it was on my show, and she walked in, and I said, "Where have you been? Have you been on vacation? We haven't seen you in 2 weeks. What happened? What's going on?" And she said, "My husband died." That was live on the radio. And that's one of those moments where, you know, you can be glib, you can be able to handle most situations, but what do you say when somebody says that to you and you realize, wow, I should have been a little more careful with that. Polish cleaning lady. And then years later, her daughter wrote a book about the Polish cleaning lady, her mother. And it's a really interesting book. We do get mentioned in it, but that particular incident, they didn't mention.
Come on, Jake. Ah, good boy.
Okay, so I guess I misunderstood it the first time I listened. Yeah, I did mention them, and I did say that, I think I did say that he said, "Where the hell have you," because he said to me when Greg and I interviewed him for Buffalo Beat, he said, "Where the hell have you been?" You know, because they were playful with my mother because she was playful back. And then she just naturally said the truth. My husband died. And he was floored because he didn't know how to respond to that because he was on the air. But I guess I didn't know he was on the air until I heard this thing. So I thought it was just without being on the air that he had made the comment, and he'd carried that wound with him all that time. My mother, I asked her about it when she was alive. She said, "Yeah, he might have said something like that, but I didn't take it seriously. He was like a goofy guy." It never bothered her, but it bothered him for decades. That's how different we have memories, right?
How long ago do you think that video was made?
It was made recently.
Would you say that he is in good shape for 86?
He's doing great. They both seem like they're very vital, don't they? Yeah. So I was really excited to see that because it was, first of all, I was so happy. I gave him a copy of the book because he's mentioned in it and because we had interviewed him, and I mentioned the interview, I think, in the book as well. And so he did. I guess he must have read the book, but it was fun. It was a fun thing for us to interview him as well. So
James, do you remember the Danny Nevereth era in Buffalo radio?
Of course. I was born in Buffalo. Danny moves your fanny in the morning.
yeah, of course.
And Vanessa, do you remember that era in Buffalo radio?
Yeah, I remember the 70s part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say you're a little younger. This was back my dad died in '64, so it was early '60s that she was working there, and that was really the biggest. It was such a big station, you know.
Yeah, 1520. Wasn't that a 50,000 watt flamethrower? You could get that all up and down the whole
Yeah.
East Coast all the way to Florida.
Yeah, I saw somebody had posted, because I posted it everywhere on every Buffalo Facebook page that I belong to, and somebody said they lived in Pennsylvania and they used to listen to it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of nice. Anyway, that was my story about my mom. And I wear her ring. This is a ring I bought for her at Sadler's, 998 Broadway. When I was 10 years old. It's an amethyst. It was her birthstone. And it was $10. And that was all the money I had in the world. And I bought that for her. I mean, $10 at the time was a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And now I think about that. And I look, I wanted to get it sized because I wanted to wear it as my wedding ring. But I'm never going to do that. So I just wear it on my middle finger. It doesn't matter. Mm. That kind of tradition is not that important to me.
Did she appreciate the gift?
She wore it her whole life. Mm. It was the only thing I ever gave her that she didn't have a snide remark about. Mm. She told me a story when she was a little kid. She had a little porcelain doll, mm-hmm. and she had a little buggy for the porcelain doll, and the porcelain doll was stolen. And so when I was living in New York, I went to Macy's or one of the stores, and I found a beautiful porcelain doll, baby doll, to give to her because she had told me that story so many times, mm-hmm. and it was heartbreaking. Like, she was a little girl during the Depression, and she couldn't replace the doll. So I gave her the doll, and I was so excited. Mom, look what I got you for your birthday. The hell did you get me a doll for? Think I'm a kid, you know, and I'm like, well, Mom, you remember this? And the same thing with, I found her a copy of the Andrews Sisters. Mm-hmm. She used to sing all the time in the house, mm-hmm. and she loved the Andrews Sisters. And, you know, at the time, they didn't have re-releases of these things. I got her a used album of the Andrews Sisters on someplace in Midtown Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And I was very excited that I found this album, you know, and I brought it home. She's, you got me a used record? It's like, nah. You know, do you know how hard it is to find this? This is not easy. But, you know, that was just her. Like your mother, sort of.
Well, it's a dilemma. If you're given a gift and you don't like it, do you tell the truth or do you go along with it?
Well, but the thing is, you think to yourself, especially something like that, where somebody's put a lot of thought into it, mm-hmm. you know, that, wow, they listened to that story, or wow, they know that I like the Andrews Sisters. Mm-hmm. She didn't value the thought. She valued the monetary amount attached to the gift. Mm-hmm. See, when I bought her jewelry, she loved that because she knew it was expensive. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to our mutual friend who
mm-hmm.
said he's going to stop pretending in his life. Mm-hmm. And I says, you mean when you say stop pretending, you're always going to tell the truth? And he said, absolutely. I said, so if a woman says to you, do I look fat in this dress? And you think she's fat in that dress, you're going to tell her? He goes, yes, I am.
Oh, wow. That should be interesting.
So it made me think of the whole thing about the gift.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there a time when it's wiser to pretend?
It's, well, not so much. See, it for me. We were speaking two different languages. My language was about giving her something that she loved, that she valued, as like the music she loved, or replacing the doll that she lost as a child. And her idea of value was, how many dollars did this cost? Or jewelry. She liked the jewelry because she could say, "Oh, my daughter bought me this. My daughter bought me this. It was very expensive," and she could brag to people about that.
James, do you always tell the truth when somebody presents you with a gift?
You threw me for a loop there. People would have to give me gifts for me to answer that. The few times that I get gifts, I can say that I can't think of too many times I got something that I would have anything negative to say. There's only been a few times where I've had to ask the question, why did you get me this?
Did I forget what I said? Must be something.
What about this equals me to you?
I remember asking somebody one time. They had tried. They asked me. This is before I would go to any sporting stuff because I just didn't like sports. They invited.
Nor should you.
They invited me to a hockey game, and I remember looking at them saying, "What about me has said to you that woman looks like she'd really enjoy a hockey game?"
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and I thought that it was probably cruel. It probably wasn't a nice thing to say,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to go to a hockey game, and I didn't. So I guess there's something to be said for bluntness, but there's a way of saying, I've been given things like candles from people, like it's hard to get excited because but somebody that didn't put any thought into the gift, they just wanted to give you something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've had that.
Mm-hmm.
Those I just
Oh yeah,
I just
I had
accept.
I had a really cheap grandmother who kept an attic full of garbage like over the years and would just pluck random crap out of it and throw it at people at random, and it had nothing to do with them, and it was always like this really cheap garbage that she
Well,
would get on
yeah,
closeout
correct.
and just store it up in the attic and and had the stash of like
All right,
pathetic gifts.
there's a story. We were living in Arizona, and Greg's father sent him a box. It was wrapped up in the mail. It was wrapped up, and it said specifically on the box, "Do not open until your birthday." So Greg's thinking it's something really exciting, something his father knows he would like, maybe a book that he's talked about or something like that. And so Greg waited until his birthday, and then when he opened it up, it looked like his father had cleaned out his desk and put all the junk from his desk into this box. And there was an old Frank Sinatra card that somebody had given him, and there was a poster of a very minor Buffalo Bills player, and Greg was like, at the time he was really angry because he got his hopes up. He thought it was going to be something great, and it was and it turns out that his father had sent all three brothers garbage from his desk. And why he did that, I do not know. I think he thought, this is good. His wife probably said, "You got to get rid of this stuff." And he probably thought, this is good stuff. I'm not going to just throw it out. And he sent it to his kids. So, people are unusual.
James,
I just want to say that as far as the situation with Vanessa's relative, there was a fashion, a cultural thing that people would buy stuff to put in like a attic or a closet or something for future gift giving. And that was just a thing. So when they bought the thing, they didn't know who was going to end up getting it. But if someone invited them to a dinner party or come over and we're having a cookout or something,
Yeah.
they would pluck something
Yeah.
from the gift closet
Yeah, but for your
and take it.
But
yeah.
she was a cheapskate. She was a notorious cheapskate. If she saw some sort of crap on sale, real dirt cheap, she'd buy it and then she'd throw it up in the attic. It was never anything good.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's as being her grandchild, you'd expect a little more thought to go into that than to get a can of motor oil. That was
Oh,
on
she
sale.
brought a can of motor oil once and she told us it was pancake syrup.
Oh,
Literally. And it was motor oil.
yeah, it sounds like she had more problems than her gift buying skills.
And she was a bad alcoholic. She was drunk all the time.
Well,
she was
that-
like an old Parisian whore.
Oh God, that's
She
lovely.
had this horrible French provincial furniture. It looked like a Parisian whorehouse.
Yeah,
and she dressed like it too.
my Aunt Helen and Uncle Frank had French provincial furniture, and I have really weird memories of that house. So, but all right. So let's get on to another topic because Richard has more topics here.
Are you familiar with the psychiatric phenomenon called Fox News dementia?
Well, I can guess what it is.
No, I didn't hear that one. I've only heard of the so-called Trump derangement syndrome that all the dumb Trumpers like to throw around now.
It's used to describe a phenomenon where some senior citizens, after they regularly consume Fox News, they develop a worldview that is perceived as increasingly fearful, conspiratorial, and full of enemies. And it may contribute to emotional changes in their way they relate to people. Look at what my friend of 55 years we've been friends. I wrote to him after the Bills lost the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Here's what he wrote back. Don't send me any sports articles about the Bills and Sabres because I will not engage you in cordial emails or conversations. I am not your friend, and as far as I'm concerned, you are my enemy.
That the same one you ran into at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds to me like he's got that. But you know what? The thing about this idea of this Fox News thing, derangement, is that many of those people, including us, we grew up in the era before news was entertainment. We grew up when the only thing they put on the news was facts, and they didn't give you any. I mean, you could sort of tell which way they were leaning, but they didn't give you their opinions about it. So now, when these older people are watching Fox News, they think it's the same way it used to be. That this is the truth. They're giving us the truth. Yeah, it is tragic, John. But it and. I don't remember which one of you pointed this out to me, but it blew my mind when it happened. That it was Clinton who signed the bill that allowed news to be entertainment, and that is what changed everything. So he fucked that one up pretty royally.
Here's what I wrote back,
Yeah.
and I need to know if you would have responded differently.
Okay.
Your mental health is starting to decline. Without friendship, you have nothing. I will never abandon you. From my perspective, we are friends for life.
Well, that was nice. He may have been surprised to learn that his mental health is declining because he doesn't think that. He thinks that you're delusional. But yes, and that's what I had a friendship that fell apart in the 90s, and I could see that this person had been struggling with her mental health, and I did the same thing. I sent her a birthday card every year until finally she, whatever was she had to go through was already, she had gone through it, and we became friends again. It took from 95 until 2006, so it was 11 years. Hi, Mick. All right. So it took 11 years, but she came around, So I think what you did is to keep the door open, and I don't think I'd stop. I didn't contact her a lot, but I would every year send her a birthday card.
Vanessa, how would you have responded to that type of message?
Probably similar to the way you did.
Yeah, I think that was a very tactful, and although like I said, the mental health thing may have been a surprise to him, because I don't think he feels that way.
And how about you? How about you, James? How would you have responded?
I don't know that I would have necessarily said what you said, but what I generally do is I give all of my contacts happy birthday messages and holiday greetings. And it's the people who don't respond that eventually I stop sending messages to. In fact, just yesterday or the day before, I made a phone call and left messages of happy birthday to someone I've known for many years. And the funny thing is that our, quote, falling out was the fact that she said that she wanted to have a relationship, but we went on a few vacations, and it was her point that we were going 50-50 on these vacations. And then one day she called me up and said she wanted to go to this convention. And, but she wanted me to make all of the arrangements. And we meet, for me, it's like 1,500 miles away. And I had a hard time getting her to nail down when she was arriving and what we were doing when she got there. So instead of making these arrangements and, locking in stuff on my credit card, I waited until she was physically there. Which was a good thing, because had I made the arrangements ahead of time, I would have spent more money than what I was able to get on the fly when she was there. But then she, for some reason, didn't want me going to the actual convention itself, which I'm like, what the hell is that? I mean, if you don't want us to do the convention grounds together, I'm fine with that. But how is it that me being at the convention affects you in any way? I had other stuff to do anyhow, so I did my stuff. I didn't visit the convention at all. She wanted me to drop her off and pick her up every day, which was a little, I got a little grouchy about that. Because I would be there if we were actually,
Right.
Then on the last day, I drive her to the airport. Typically speaking, on the last day of whatever thing that we've done together, she would just give me her portion of whatever the expenses were. And we end up at the airport. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? You haven't given me your portion yet. Have how are we doing this?
Yeah.
And she got angry and said, I can't believe you're asking me to pay you for. Wait a minute. If that's what we were doing, which is different from whatever we've ever done
Yeah.
for years,
Yeah.
don't you think you should have said something about that
And
ahead of time?
especially since she wasn't spending time with you.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
how is it that when we're actually doing stuff as if we're a couple, you pay? But when we're just two people who happen to be in the same space and I'm your chauffeur, I'm supposed to pay.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds pretty
That
yeah.
sounds awful.
Mick wants to know what convention it was. Do you want to reveal that fact or no?
I'll just say it was a professional convention for my industry.
Okay.
So,
Is she also involved in your industry?
yes,
Oh, okay. All right, so that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that you couldn't go.
exactly.
Yeah.
At any rate, it took her over a year to actually pay up what she owed.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out of this, she didn't speak to me for quite a while and was always very angry and whatnot. And said something or other on the line that, we could have had a real relationship if you were willing to help me more. And I'm like, what? Whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I gave her the happy birthday message on her answering machine. And she called me back all happy to hear from me and updated me that she's moved to another state. She's retired both from her government job and our profession. And she was really happy to hear from me and blah, blah, blah. And maybe we'll see each other again sometime soon.
Well, she's obviously over the but I don't know if you should be. I mean, it was kind of like she was trying to use you for that particular convention. I don't know. I wouldn't
Do
have, I wouldn't have
girls
liked
do
it.
that?
And boys do it too, James. It's
Does
not just
does
girls.
anybody say that boys don't?
Human beings aren't always nice.
But there's this weird thing where people want to give women credit for always being sugar and spice and
no.
everything nice.
Oh no, no, that's not right. And most women will tell you that's not right. And most women will tell you they don't like to be considered sugar and spice because they've got more depth than that. But we've got yeah. Go ahead.
A wise man once said, "Women understand women, and they hate each other."
Well, I don't know if that. I mean, there is a lot of women that I wouldn't be friends with, but then there's a lot of men I wouldn't be friends with too. So I guess it's all a matter of who you concentrate on. Who you're looking at, who you think is worth spending time with. I've gotten very fussy about that as I've gotten older. I will not waste my time on people that that drain me. So, But now we've got like 6 minutes left. Is there something else on your list, Richard?
Tom, I sent you in Messenger a photo. Paula and I discussed this during the week.
God. This photo here.
So at the Grammys, everybody poses for their official
Yeah.
photo of, because, and usually you bring somebody.
Yeah.
So you usually, well, anyway, so when Kanye West had his official photo taken, he was with his wife, who took off her fur coat, and this is what the official photo was.
Show it.
We can't quite show it right now.
Okay.
Oh, you mean a technical problem or a moral problem?
The Facebook police moral problem.
Oh, okay.
Really?
What?
Well,
Why don't you try it and see what happens?
I
Yeah.
don't want the account getting banned.
Oh, okay.
so we're putting.
Facebook
I
has
didn't think it was that
actually
bad of a
said,
picture.
Oh, so
How
we-
would you get banned?
What we can do is we can describe it.
Oh, yeah, and I think Tom figured out a way to make it kosher.
Or we can blur part of it.
So what happened then is we have this photograph that you're about to see. And
There we go.
Do you look at this as a woman performing an act of freedom? Or do you look at it as a man representing a woman as a sexual object?
She decided. I mean, she may have done it by his. She may have thought this will be a hoot. She's obviously proud of her body. This will be a hoot. Nobody's ever done this before. I can do this. I can be naked. And, it's possible.
she's wearing a sheer dress. She's not naked.
She's really naked.
So I thought she had
Really.
something on, right? But you can see through it.
Yeah, it's like a piece of nylon, sheer nylon.
Hence,
there's-
she's not technically naked.
she's not technically naked, but she's naked.
Which is why Facebook actually allows this picture. She's wearing something.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I've seen it on Facebook before.
but the thing is, it's tasteless, and I mean it's tasteless. Kanye
Yeah,
probably
it's real cheap and uncreative.
Kanye probably said, "Let's do this. It'll be it'll be
He's a nutcase
shocking.
anyway.
It'll be
can't believe-
shocking." It's shock
can't believe-
value. It's shock value for shock value. It's not shock value that's got any artistic relevance or anything that's going to help society. It's just shocking.
You ever see that interview he gave? I was about a year ago. I think it might have been Alex Jones, where he's dressed up. He has a mask on and he's all dressed in black rubber, and he's like talking about how much he loves Hitler. Have you ever seen that?
I've
It's really crazy.
heard about it, but I didn't see it.
But after that, I don't know how he still has a fucking career, but
Yeah.
he does.
Well, it's because
And
it's
he
because of the
loved Hitler and he
times.
loves Nazis,
It's
and yeah, I know that's real
Because
popular
of the
now.
times
But
we live in, and the
and he's still
Elon
he's still
Musk.
selling mainstream records.
yeah, and right, but people are desensitized. They have to be because of everything that's going on. It's just they're desensitized to anything. What's that?
2-minute warning.
Oh, 2-minute warning. Okay, so I think that most people have become desensitized to. It was 4 years with Trump, and then, we had a very ineffectual 4 years with. Not that it was ineffectual. He did a lot of
And
things.
it was
Biden.
pretty ineffectual. Biden didn't accomplish anything except putting a tax on eBay and say you're a billionaire if you make $600 off the internet.
Well,
That's all he did. That's all he did.
That's
and
changed
Trump
now.
dominated that whole 4
Yeah.
years. All you heard about was Trump more than Biden.
I know.
Trump never went away.
So that eBay thing has changed slightly. It's there. This tax year from last year, it was 5,000, and this year now is 2,500. Richard sent me this information, and then the year that follows that will be $600.
I hope if Trump's going to do something, I hope he does away with that, but he probably won't.
He doesn't care about people
because they
that
never do
don't.
anything to really help people.
They don't that have low incomes that are
That's
trying
all.
to
That's all
make.
Biden accomplished.
make
He should have
ends meet.
went after. He should have went after Trump the first year and not dragged his feet
Yeah.
4 years to
I
make
know.
it possible for Trump to
There
run
was-
again.
there was a
Biden
lot
is
of-
just as guilty as Trump himself
It's a
for
lot
Trump's
of,
victory.
There was a lot of infrastructure and things that were done, but now
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, it was the first time the infrastructure bill had been passed. They've been talking about
Yeah,
it for
but they
decades.
didn't use it for infrastructure. What infrastructure did they use it for?
They've been putting in the electric.
Let's build back nothing.
No, I don't agree with that. I think that he did have policies that were there to help. Oh, it's over. All right, thank you everybody for coming, and so I appreciate I appreciate everybody that chimed in online, typing. Thank you, and au revoir.